And it was right around this same time that we'd start to notice these strange people that had moved in beneath us. We run to the window after being startled out of our sleep. We come to discover there's like a police raid happening right downstairs. There was most likely a whorehouse right beneath my bedroom in that shady basement. So the night before, when he was arrested during the raid, he apparently had the plan to shoot up the place. They found jugs filled with gasoline. They also found rags, matches, lighters. They said the reason they were there was that there was a dangerous situation that they were informed of that they felt they needed to warn us about. But it wasn't until the next day, Monday, that we'd gotten the biggest shock of them all.
There is an unwritten code in Brooklyn. You don't tell anyone else's stories, and you don't talk about anyone else's business. Every story I tell is mine. Locations, names, and specific details have all been changed to honor that code. This is Brooklyn Files, the real stories.
One of my most vivid memories of growing up in Brooklyn was living in this one particular neighborhood. It was amazing. So I was around 13 years old. It was April of 1983. In just another month, the Brooklyn Bridge was about to turn 100 years old. And it was like this huge deal, massive centennial celebration. So there were fireworks, it was televised, there was flyovers. There was something really awesome about this neighborhood though, very unique. There were nothing but sports-obsessed boys on the block we lived on. So we had this diverse group of kids. We pretty much had every nationality covered, if I can remember correctly. And we got along well together when we weren't fighting. I mean, we fought quite a bit, actually. But we always had enough kids to have two teams to play any type of sport that we wanted to. So you name it, we played it. We even invented sports. So we'd play tackle football on the hard concrete street. Like no equipment, no helmets. We would just tackle each other on the pavement. Like it was insane. We'd of course play an old Brooklyn street classic stickball. That was great. Stickball is just like baseball, but you hit the ball with this like skinny stick, almost like a broomstick instead of a bat. And the ball is this blue rubber ball. It goes far when you hit it, so it's a lot of fun. And we'd play street hockey with roller skates, like roller hockey in the street. We'd use like garbage cans as the net. And we'd have to like get a roll of electrical tape to use as a puck every time we played. So we would like chip in, which meant like, we'd put our money together. We'd walk up to the corner hardware store. Like the guy got tired of seeing us, and we'd buy a roll of electrical tape before we'd play street hockey every time. And I remember this one time when I was so excited to play hockey the next day, my mom had bought me like this new pair of roller skates. I think it was my birthday or something. So I slept in my new roller skates the whole night. At least I tried to. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep. It was really uncomfortable. We even made up our own game called Kill the Guy with the Ball. You would toss the ball up and whoever caught it, everybody would jump in and tackle that guy. I don't know who would want to catch the ball. And we played these games right there in the middle of the street, no regard for cars coming down the street, heading right at us. And right on cue, we'd always get yelled at by all the adults on the block. Like they'd take turns yelling at us. Like, why don't you play in the park? You're gonna damage somebody's car, they would yell. Or, this one guy, his name was Vincenzo. And this guy, he was like an old, chubby Italian guy, and he would yell at us constantly. This guy, I think, hated us. Like, he was always screaming at us. Vincenzo had no filter either. He was kind of like a miserable guy. He would just scream at us, like, you sons of bitches, and things like that. Get the hell away from that car, that's my car. Or he'd say something like, you kids are gonna get run over by a car, you're gonna get killed. I don't know, maybe he was actually looking out for us when I think about it. He was always yelling something at us when we were out there playing. But we just ignored all the adults, kept on playing, we didn't really care, and we had a lot of fun, and it always kept us occupied, so. This was around the time we were living in this street-level apartment. Our landlord lived upstairs from us, and there was this third apartment that I think was even illegal. It was right beneath us. But there was something very shady about it. It was nothing more than a basement, that our landlord rented out. to these people, and the entrance was hidden on the back of the house. And I say hidden because you could only access this basement from the alley behind the house. And there was a cement staircase that led down to this basement that went to this apartment, and it happened to be right under my mom's bedroom window. And it was right around this same time that we'd start to notice these strange people that had moved in beneath us. And I remember one day seeing the man and the woman. My first thought when I saw them was they were kind of odd looking. They didn't appear very friendly. And the best way I could describe them is kind of like a carnival worker look. They just didn't look like they were from Brooklyn. They were weird. They had this like transient appearance, kind of malnourished, maybe some drug use or something, who knows. And the next thing we noticed about them was that they always had people coming and going. It was hard to ignore. So all throughout the day and all hours of the evening, you'd always hear something going on downstairs at any given time. You could hear several people talking downstairs. Everything seemed to take a weird turn though. One day, when my mother was taking a nap in the middle of the afternoon, and suddenly she wakes up from the nap and she screams and she startles us. And she comes running out of her bedroom like freaked out. And she says that she's just been woken up by the sound of someone trying to open up her window from the outside. So at first we kind of thought that maybe she'd been dreaming it, maybe she imagined it. But once we further examined it, you could see the screen had been opened up a few inches and there were like these slits in the screen. So somebody obviously used like a sharp blade or something to slit the screen. And then they slid their fingers in the slits to open the latches. And then they opened up the screen, and that's how we found it, a few inches up. And it left us really shaken to think somebody tried to get into our home while we were all there. It was just freaky. And, don't forget, we were poor, so we didn't have anything to steal. So we started to suspect anyone and everyone around us, including our strange downstairs neighbors that recently moved in. And so we also didn't have means to protect ourselves. We couldn't have alarms installed, that was expensive. Aside from this being New York City and gun laws being really restrictive, like even if we could, we couldn't afford guns to protect ourselves. So being 13 years old and being resourceful and being a bit of a, wise ass, I got this idea to create my own defense system. So I took an old baseball bat and I started driving rusty nails in it. And I would keep that next to my bed as self-defense. I also devised this plan to glue thumbtacks to the window latches to deter anybody from being able to press them to open up the window. It was kind of like the poor person's home defense system, but it was the best that I can do at that time. So the next few days, we're on guard trying to figure out who tried to break in. But everything immediately came into focus when one day I was hanging out with my friends and we'd just gotten done playing one of our street sports, as we always did. And we were sitting on my friend's front stairs, and my friend lived next to that old big mouth Italian guy, Vincenzo. And so Vincenzo, I guess, overheard me talking about the weird new people that moved in downstairs from us and how my mom's bedroom window was broken into. And out of nowhere, Vincenzo, he chimes in and he says, "Don't you know you live above a cat house?" And I was like 13 years old, so I had no idea what he was talking about. As soon as I heard cat house, I thought it was like a home with a lot of cats, like somewhere a cat lady would live. Like that's all I could think of. And so I said to Vincenzo, I go, "A cat house? You mean like where they have a lot of cats?" And Vincenzo, he just blurts it out. He goes, "No, you live above a whorehouse." So I'm sitting on the stairs with my friends and I'm telling them about these weird people that live beneath us. When Vincenzo, the loud old Italian guy, he just blurts out that I live above a whorehouse. And like, you wouldn't think that learning that would bother a 13-year-old, but I was a pretty intelligent 13-year-old and I kind of knew what that came with. I knew it meant there was probably drugs and other illegal stuff going on right beneath us. And to learn that, not gonna lie, like it was disturbing. It made me feel unsafe, insecure. And mind you, I was just going on what that big mouth Vincenzo said. So we didn't have any hard proof at that, but it suddenly all started to make sense. Like when you added up all the stuff, You know, the shady looking people downstairs, people coming and going all hours of the night, the music, the partying, late night gatherings, and things like that. It certainly was starting to look like Vincenzo was probably right. There was most likely a whorehouse right beneath my bedroom in that shady basement. But we still couldn't shake the worry about the window being broken into either. So one night, it was about a few weeks later, it was late, I think Saturday night, like 3 a.m. or something. We were awakened by these police sirens. Then we noticed like yelling below us and then like shuffling sounds and utter chaos like outside our window and like in the apartment below. We run to the window after being startled out of our sleep. We come to discover there's like a police raid happening right downstairs. So the NYPD shows up, like 20 officers and detectives, and they start dragging people out of the creepy basement. And you're hearing screaming and cursing, and they're resisting arrest. And we're hearing the word warrant being thrown around. Apparently the NYPD got word of what was going on downstairs, and they started slapping the cuffs on everyone, and they just, raided the whole place. Lining up people against the wall. We ended up staying awake all night to watch this scene play out. It was just absolutely crazy. It lasted a couple of hours or so as they sorted everything out. Like, who could sleep with that kind of mayhem going on beneath us? So the next morning comes, we're still kind of in shock over what took place the night before. But other than that, it was like a relatively normal Sunday morning when out of nowhere, the doorbell rings, and we weren't expecting any visitors or anything like that. So we were kind of surprised that anybody would be at our door. I get to the door, there are 2 NYPD officers standing right there on our doorstep. So my initial thought was like, do they think we were somehow involved with that crap going on downstairs last night? Like, I was a little scared of that. Like, that was the first place my mind went. So I call my mother, she comes to the door. The officers ask my mom if they can come in and speak to her and ask her some questions. And this is the part where things started to get really terrifying. They said the reason they were there was that there was a dangerous situation that they were informed of that they felt they needed to warn us about. So it's Sunday morning, it's the night after this big raid on the basement brothel downstairs from us. 2 NYPD officers show up at our front door. The officer says they learned of something dangerous that they felt they needed to warn us about. So the officers, they come inside, they're able to confirm that there was in fact a prostitution ring downstairs. So it turns out that loudmouth Vincenzo was right. They placed the 2 residents, the man and the woman, under arrest in addition to numerous others that were there in the raid. And there were also other criminal activities taking place downstairs, exactly what I thought. There were drugs, drug paraphernalia, there were illegal firearms, all kinds of stuff. But the reason they were at our door this morning was to warn us of a potentially dangerous and very concerning situation. So apparently when they had made the arrests the night before, there was this John, we'll call him. A John is the generic name for a prostitution customer. And when this John was arrested along with the others in the apartment, the police found an illegal firearm on this man, this John. Well, that led them to his vehicle, which had been parked in the alley behind our apartment. So the NYPD then had probable cause to search this John's vehicle. And when they opened his vehicle, they found not only more guns, they found a host of burglary tools, including a box cutter, which we believe was used to cut my mother's bedroom screen. They found jugs filled with gasoline. They also found rags, matches, lighters. So apparently this guy, under pressure, had admitted to detectives he apparently had this huge business disagreement with the guy downstairs, something to do with like owing him money that he never paid back, and there was a woman involved too. And he was so set on getting revenge that a couple of weeks before this raid, he'd been to our apartment. He'd mistakenly thought that the brothel operator, this man who owed him large sums of money and who'd done him wrong, was living upstairs from the basement business. So he thought that guy was living in our apartment. The day our screen was cut, was the day he'd come back to take revenge. And what he was planning to do was open the screen window, which he did, so he could throw several Molotov cocktails into the bedroom window. So the intention was to burn the place down with everyone home. It was at that moment that my mother woke up and screamed that his plan was obviously spoiled and he had to take off and run. When that plan failed, he had to come up with like a backup plan. So the night before, when he was arrested during the raid, he apparently had the plan to shoot up the place, which was why he was back in the alley when the raid happened, and he just entered the basement apartment when the police showed up. It was just perfect timing. He was then arrested with the others, which was why he was found with a firearm in his pocket when he was arrested. And again, he was convinced that the guy who owed him money, the guy that ran the brothel downstairs, he was convinced he lived upstairs in our apartment, which he didn't. He was planning on going upstairs to our place to finish the job after he went downstairs. So the police raid literally saved our lives. We had no idea at the time that when the police showed up that night, it was like the cavalry had arrived. According to the police, we had cheated death twice in the span of a couple of weeks. When you stop and think about how close we came to death, it just leaves you with the absolute chills. But it wasn't until the next day, Monday, that we'd gotten the biggest shock of them all. So I'm rolling up the newspapers to get ready for my newspaper route that day, and I was ready to deliver them. I was flipping through the newspaper, and on like the third page of the paper, I happened to stumble on this news article that made my blood run cold. So when old man Vincenzo told me that we had a whorehouse right beneath us, not once did I question like just how he knew that. Until that moment, I saw his photo in the paper. Vincenzo was the John they arrested for attempted murder.